So wow, Miguel is actually a really cool character in Jujutsu Kaisen. I can't help but wonder, why did Gege Akutame take so long to reintroduce his character when we got a glimpse of what he can do? And looking back context-wise, now it makes a little bit more sense as to why he was able to handle, or maybe not so much handle, the thrashing that Gojo gave him back in the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie. Beyond that, we see Jump Kaisen in full force once more, and get this, is the Sukuna cycle finally broken? Maybe yes, maybe no, but let's go ahead and discuss the thing I'm excited about, is actually learning about who Miguel is and getting some traits of his personality and how much it actually shines in this flashback that we get of him in LaRue. Because the chapter begins with calling both of them Ghetto Squad, and of course, for people who needed a reminder, Miguel was in Seguro Ghetto's entourage during the Night of 100 parade, and we also see alongside him is a character named LaRue. LaRue is kind of hard to differentiate because he's that character that was there that you saw one time and now he just so happens to reappear, and he was the sensible person that said after the falling out of Shibuya that everyone should go their separate ways. And here he is now giving his 2 cents as to what Miguel should do in this scenario that Yuta, during the 1-month training arc, relays the information about the Culling Games and the merger, and he basically says, look, there's someone Gojo's going to fight who could possibly defeat Gojo, but what's even worse is that this merger is basically cataclysmic, and this is going to reach beyond the realms of just my country of Japan. It's going to affect the whole world. And I do like how Miguel basically tells Yuta, look, even if the merger is a thing, that ain't my problem, because from personal experience, someone who can beat up Gojo, who ended up whooping my ass, is someone I essentially do not want to fight. But despite all of this, Miguel ended up training Yuta after the events of JJK 0. And why is that? Well, the lingering effects of Satoru Gojo is touching the lives indirectly from everyone who has had a chance to personally know him. And I do like, even after losing, Miguel feeling obligated to train Yuta or intimidated by Satoru Gojo has taken Yuta in to hone his craft. And I'm sure he has given him some awareness on how to be better as an overall sorcerer, given the reveal of Miguel's curse technique, which we'll describe later on. But essentially all we need to know in this flashback is that Miguel reluctantly doesn't want to fight Sukuna, but agreeing on the conditions that he will take him on after Gojo and after Yuta ends up losing. And when you cut into the present moment, we see both LaRue and Miguel say how they actually almost feel somewhat pitiful for the King of Curses, as his RCT is lowered, his heart is punctured, and well, is basically a ripe for the picking. But unfortunately for the both of them, they haven't been around long enough, unlike us, the audience, to know that the Sukuna cycle is a thing. And what ends up happening is, well, basically what we've been getting these past several few chapters. So we get LaRue, who finally reveals his CT, which is like a big hand. He can be like the hand from Super Smash Brothers. And basically all you need to know is that he only gets 1/10 of the damage brought back to him when his hand is destroyed or used to demolish buildings, sorcerers, etc. And he can regenerate it as many times as he can. But like Sukuna says in this chapter, it's a pretty generic curse technique. But what is most fascinating is that of Miguel. And again, this is what I mentioned earlier in this chapter. How did Miguel deal with the thrashing that Satoru Gojo gave him? Or more importantly, why is Miguel even confident in his abilities to perhaps even face off against the King and Curses in chapter 255? Well, essentially we find out that his curse technique titled Hakuna Lana enhances his own physical capabilities. And additionally, his technique is like shooting off buffs and debuffs without the use of a domain. So although it's useful, it's not the most intimidating technique out there. An editor's note on the Hakuna Lana, we do get more information here on where Gege's inspiration came from for the technique. So it says from the Swahili language, which can be directly as without curses, is referenced as the Song of Grace. It seems to reference a ritualistic dance Maasai warriors used by young warriors to show their abilities to make quick motions and jumps as a display of grace and dexterity while employing movements considered useful for hunting and fighting. Just reinforcing how cool Miguel is and why you had someone like Miguel in your back pocket only to be used in the final battle. I guess better late than did not show up at all, but it would have been cool now that we know more about Miguel's character and his curse technique, why he didn't come a little bit sooner, but I digress. But for someone like Miguel, as Gojo ends up complimenting him and not complimenting him too, which I guess we can talk about a little bit later, he essentially says that all 99% of sorcerers are Japanese, and that the 1% of sorcerers, someone like Miguel in this instance, for someone to essentially have a curse energy buff with his muscle mass is a crazy rare thing in general. And then this is where Miguel's like, that's a bit of a backhanded compliment. He goes on to say, well, he's not special because he's black, he's special because he is him. And to that, I salute you, my friend. In which Satoru Gojo actually ends up apologizing, but why that was included in the chapter, I'm not going to speak anything more on it, but put some respect to Miguel's name. Anyway, the important thing out of his curse technique is Gojo telling Yuta in a flashback that if Gojo Miguel were to fight with bare knuckles with only curse energy enhancement and no techniques, he would absolutely win. No surprise there. But if this was a sprint, not a marathon, well, things might be looking very advantageous for Miguel himself. And we see over the course of 255 that he's swiftly dodging all of the slashes that Sukuna is throwing at him. Now, whether or not that heightened awareness of his curse technique is that on par of Maki's heavenly restriction, that is to be determined. But, you know, with the reintroduction of Miguel, and you gotta prop him up and make him look good even for a few panels, I would even say, even if it's at least on par with Maki's heightened awareness, it's pretty cool that to the beat of his moves and how he kind of senses these curse techniques thrown at him, that he can do a pretty good job even against someone like Sukuna, which is really fascinating. Now, during this one-on-one with Miguel and Sukuna, this is now where we get the reintroduction of Choso, Maki, and Yuji. Choso comes in with the piercing blood, barely misses. Yuji ends up smashing Sukuna, and then Maki, who Sukuna says even with the black flash, she's somehow back. These are his inner thoughts, right? So, you know, even with the black flash, him complimenting Maki like this is a good, impressive feat. And well, it goes to show you that Maki really wasn't going to die so easily. But what's really interesting in this segment of the chapter is the hand sign that Sukuna used for Malevolent Shrine titled Enmitten. Sukuna was forced to impose a binding vow to the activation conditions for the preceding uses of the move in order to cut Gojo Satoru. Presently, the Enmitten hand sign and chance being required must be specified via his palm. And after this is stated, we look at Sukuna's two arms. Well, he doesn't have two arms right now. He doesn't have two hands to use. His bottom right is heavily injured. Things are looking pretty good for the sorcerers. As Yuji's inner thought says, he can complete the hand sign with only his right arms, and his RCT technique still isn't functional. We can win. It's all coming together. Everyone's hard work, all for this moment. And it's like, Yuji, you celebrated a bit too early, my friend, because what ends up happening in this ripe opportunistic moment where things are gonna look good for the sorcerers, this is where Sukuna deals a second black flash, unfortunately to LaRue, which, well, does anyone really care? But the thing that is echoed immediately after is where the narrator ends up saying, when Gojo Satoru restored his lost RCT output by landing a second black flash, now in the King of Curses cases, ... will the same remain? Most likely for the Sukuna effect to continue, I would say yes, but at some point, even with Miguel and now LaRue taken out of the story, we have to see the good guys win at some point, right? Right? Or at least the merger come to bring us something exciting, right? Right? But no matter how you spin it, at least this chapter broke the Sukuna effect to me slightly. I'm curious to know how you guys feel in the comments down below. And to see more exciting JJK or new content on the channel, you're going to want to click on this video right here.